Welcome everyone. Today I've got a game between Stockfish and Leela, in which Stockfish played some inhumane chess, getting into a position that you never see in human chess. The game begins with e4 and d6, d4 putting two pawns in the center, knight f6, attacking e4 and knight c3 defending. g6 from black, and now Stockfish plays f4, putting three pawns in the center and restricting the black pieces. c6 from black, and this is where the opening book ended. The engines are now on their own. This position is very interesting because Stockfish has a nice center, but for a human, it's very difficult to preserve this advantage as black gets quick counterplay against the center. Let's see how Stockfish plays the position. Knight f3 developing and bishop g7 from Leela. Bishop d3, getting the bishop out and preparing to castle. Castles, and now knight a6 from Leela. Leela wants to put the knight on c7 in order to prepare b5. Black tries to create play on the queen side while white will try and go for a kingside attack. The fish now plays h3. This move does a few useful things. The main idea is that it's stopping knight g4 if Stockfish ever puts the bishop on e3, and it's also a waiting move. Stockfish can't really make a major decision right now, so it's waiting for Leela to counterattack its center, and then it will be able to transform the center advantageously. c5 from Leela, attacking the center, and d5 from Stockfish closing down the center. The closed center benefits the attacking side as it cramps the opponent and makes it very difficult for them to bring pieces into the defense. Rook b8 from Leela, preparing a future b5 to expand on the queen side. f5 now from Stockfish. This move is very interesting. Firstly, it looks a bit weakening as it creates a hole on e5, but it's actually very difficult to exploit this weakness. Leela has a problem now because taking the pawn will always weaken the king, and leaving the pawn there will allow Stockfish to slowly bring pieces to the king side, and then exchange when it feels that its attack will break through. Ultimately, Leela has to wait for the perfect time to take the pawn. Knight c7, threatening b5. Leela starts creating its own attacking possibilities on the queen side. This forces Stockfish to respond to the queen side problems and therefore buys Leela time on the king side. Stockfish plays a4, acknowledging the b5 threat and preventing it. A 6 from Leela, re-enabling the threat, and now a 5 from Stockfish preventing b5 permanently. Leela will now never be able to get a strong connected pawn storm going to the queen side, so it must turn its play to the other side of the board. This is very instructive what Leela now does. It needs to find a way to open the position as it is very cramped, and therefore sets its sights on the d5 pawn. This is why Leela now takes on f5, as it forces Stockfish to recapture, thereby destabilizing the d5 pawn. Now Leela plays b5, before taking the pawn on d5, and there's a very important reason for this. If Leela just takes on d5, then white will recapture, and Leela will take back. Now Stockfish will play knight g5 attacking h7 and beginning the attack. Leela must then go knight f6 defending, and then Stockfish will play rook a4 rotating the rook over. Now if Leela plays b5, then the important thing is that Stockfish doesn't have to take and can play rook h4 with a winning attack. Leela played b5 first because now Stockfish has to take. Otherwise, it cannot play rook a4 and its pieces will be kicked back. After Stockfish takes, Leela now takes in the center and Stockfish trades off the knight. Now you may be asking what's the big deal? Can't Stockfish still play rook a4 and rook lift? Well, Stockfish did play rook a4 here preparing to rotate over. Now the main difference is that Leela can play queen takes b6. Now the threat of c4 with a check is what saves black here. The check is very important as white has too little time for the attack and will therefore lose the bishop. King h2, getting out of the queen's sight, and now knight f6, bringing the knight back to the defense. But still, this is a very wild position that still has great attacking potential for white. Rook h4 from white, c4 from Leela, sacrificing the pawn to buy time, and rook takes c4 from Stockfish. Now the material is equal and Leela plays a5, with the idea of bishop a6 to try and trade pieces. Rook h4 back from Stockfish, and now bishop a6 from Leela. Stockfish now plays knight e1, planning to recapture with the knight, creating a strong central knight, and also opening up the f1 rook. Queen c6 from Leela. The kingside attack is going to be very strong. So Leela prepares rook b4 to try and trade off the rook. Queen e2, adding another attacker to the bishop and almost forcing black to take on d3. The reason for this is because Leela played rook b4, Stockfish took. Leela then had to take on d3, and now because Stockfish forced the bishop trade, it can recapture with the knight. All of this, so that after black recaptures on b4, Stockfish can win the b4 pawn with the knight. Queen b7 from Leela, and now c3 from the fish, blunting the black dark square bishop and defending the knight. And just like that, the game has changed. Many humans, once they've started an attack, they are tempted to finish it. Stockfish, on the other hand, threatened the entire attack, in order for Leela to have to give up a pawn to defend. And now Stockfish will just outplay Leela up a pawn. It's very instructive how engines don't use the attack, but rather the threat of the attack to force opponents to make weaknesses or give up material that they then convert effortlessly in an endgame. d5 from Leela, threatening d4, and rook d1 from Stockfish, neutralizing this threat. Rook e8, bishop e3 and e6 from black, trying to open up the rook. F takes e6, f takes e6, and then king g1, getting out of any future checks. Knight d4 and knight d3. Stockfish just slowly shuffles and improves. There's no need to rush. Queen b5 and queen f3 unpinning. Leela now plays e5, and Stockfish immediately takes this opportunity to go king h2, as the diagonal is now closed. Knight f6 and knight c5. Stockfish is giving away the b2 pawn, but will get another passed pawn in exchange. Queen takes b2, and now Stockfish plays the brilliant knight d7, sacrificing the knight and deflecting the black knight from the defense of d5. If you're enjoying the game so far, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. Stockfish says that's the best move you can make. Anyway, Leela takes and Stockfish takes on d5 with check, winning a pawn back and preparing to get the knight back. King h8 and queen takes d7, attacking the black rook. Rook g8, and then Stockfish goes c4, preparing to throw the black pawn down the board. e4 from black, activating the dark square bishop, and then queen d2 from Stockfish, defending all the pieces and threatening a queen trade. Bishop e5 check, king g1, queen takes d2, and rook takes d2. Now Stockfish has to just win this endgame. King g7, rook d7 check, king g6, and rook e7. This move forces Leela to use its king to defend the bishop, therefore dropping the h7 pawn. Rook takes h7 and rook b8. Rook d7 and bishop g3, cutting off the king and hoping that Stockfish will blunder a back rank checkmate. Stockfish, by a miracle, doesn't blunder the back rank checkmate and instead plays king f1. King e6 and rook d4, attacking the e4 pawn and defending c4. King e5, rook d1, rook b3, and king e2, defending the bishop. King f5 from Leela and c4 from Stockfish. There's not really much that Leela can do anymore. Rook c3, putting the rook behind the pawn, and rook d5 check from Stockfish. King e6 and rook d4. King e5 and rook d1. The c4 pawn may not be enough alone, so Stockfish will need to use one of its other pawns to help distract the black army. King f5, rook d5 check, king e6 and rook d8. Rook c2 check, king d1, and rook c3. This allows king d2, defending the bishop and attacking the black rook. The black rook is running out of squares behind the pawn and will need to find another way to prevent its movement. Rook a3, king e2, and rook back to c3. Stockfish now plays rook c7 with the purpose of kicking away the bishop so that it can now push the queenside pawns. Bishop c7 and h4. Rook c2, king d1, rook c3, king d2, bishop a5 and king e2, getting out of the discovered attack. Rook c2 check, king f1 and rook c3. Stockfish now plays bishop d2, giving away the c5 pawn after rook takes c5. What does Stockfish get in exchange? A bishop trade. Rook f5 check from Leela, king e2 and rook h5. Leela sees the position as so lost that it doesn't even take the free bishop. The two passed pawns are too strong in this rook endgame. Rook g4 defending from Stockfish, rook e5 from Leela, and then rook g5 from Stockfish, forcing a rook trade. e3, rook takes e5, king takes e5, and here the game ended. Leela probably resigned. This is completely winning. White will just push the two passed pawns to make queens, and then checkmate the black king. If you want to further improve your chess, check out this video here or check out our other engine games. Thanks for watching.